Hello everyone. Welcome to Paris. Let's see. Hello everyone. How are you doing there? Bonjour, Tracy, Vicky, Teresa. Very nice to see you're already waiting for me there. If someone could just post in the comments just to make sure that the sound is working well, that would be fantastic. I'm just going to wait a few minutes here to make sure that you're all well connected here. Just started a few minutes early to make sure you're here. Beautiful day, Paris. Wonderful day to be. Fantastic. Thank you for the confirmation there from you all. Hey Ethan. Hey Scott. Oh, I got a fellow Brit with us today. That's fantastic. Always a pleasure to have some fellow countrymen with us. Do any of you know where we are, by the way? Do any of you recognise where we are here? Let's just flip you around. Let's see. So, in the comments there, does anyone recognise this building perhaps? Back through the city, we're really in the heart of everything. Musée d'Orsay, fantastic there, Jenna. Yeah, Musée d'Orsay. Okay, so looks like we're about on time. 20 of you there. Very happy to have you all. So some of you may have been expecting to see Ferret, to see Josephine today. I'm Will. If any of you recognise me, you may have seen our tours of the Louvre I did a few months back. The Louvre is in fact the Louvre pointing through the Tuileries Gardens. Cold, wet, wintry months. Hello from Plymouth, by the way there, Maria. My family's from Callington, if you know where that is. But anyway, for today's event, I wanted to explain a little bit about the World Fairs, the Grand Expositions. And I thought I'd bring you here today to the Orsay. It starts at the Orsay, and we're going to visit a number of sites kind of flowing down the river. I believe Josephine last week took us from the heart of the city. So we have. Hopefully that sound should be a little bit better for you. Hello there in Greece. So Josephine, a week ago, took you from the heart of the city. We have the spires, the two twin towers of the Notre Dame just over our shoulder there. So she took us down towards the Musée d'Orsay here, and I'm going to take over as such. So I'm going to and visit a few these world. Come into the city a little bit better. I'll do what I can. Let's hope that this improves. Lafayette would break up a protest on the Champ de Mars, and the French government actually decided what better way to change history, to change our perception of the space, than to throw a big a fair. Okay. At industry and the world fairs that we had coming all the way through the 19th century. Now, to just start with what's over our shoulder, turn you around. So the Musée d'Orsay, this is really the height of the Paris World Fairs, the Great Expositions, and the Orsay Museum, this was built for the 1900 World Fair. Now, back at the time of the first World Fairs, there was actually a Hôtel Particulier on this site here. At the time when Napoleon would take power a little bit later, he changed the space here. He changed the use of that Hôtel Particulier into state functions. It was actually part of the army's premises, the cavalry. Any of you know a little bit about Napoleon's history? He would have loved to have been in the cavalry. In fact, he found his way into the armed forces in the infantry, but the cavalry is always close to his heart. In any case, this was part of those army premises right up through the time of the Paris communes. In the 1870s, it was rather these world fairs coming through, we needed a train station in the city, and that is what they decided to do with this space, and they built for us this magnificent structure, the train station that is the Orsay Museum. And we don't immediately see that from outside, but if we zoom in a little bit, like we have clocks on the front. One of the biggest train stations of Paris, actually, until in fact it was simply a little bit too small for the city, for the trains that would come through. To do with it. At one point Corbusier, the architect, 1970s, the railway station, they decided to the museum that we have here today. Visiting there. Now I see a stream breaking up, so I think, and hopefully find some a little bit better signal for taking a little bit of a chance to actually have my bike today, just so I can do some jumps through the city. So we're going to walk through the city. Let's just switch you forward. There we go. So we're going to drop down this little bridge here. If any of you come to Paris, I feel like the city is starting to come back to life again. Do use this bridge to pop between the Tuileries Gardens and the Orsay Museum. Great way to cross over after a visit to the Louvre. And we're just going to pop down here to walk along these lovely verges. So there we go. Now we have the Orsay just behind. Lovely, elegant bridge, this. Those pedestrian bridges. If you come to Paris, do visit. We'll see a couple today. We have 37 bridges in the city. Beautiful sunny day in Paris. So we're just going to go along towards the center of the city. So looking back towards the Orsay Museum here, and you can really think of the Orsay as a gateway to that World Fair. This will not all be a tour about transportation history, but a lot of the infrastructure that we had coming here to the city, not just this train station, but also the wonderful Paris Metro, came to the city. If you ride the line 1, if you maybe mix in a trip to the Arc de Triomphe, go to the Louvre, maybe pop down towards the Hôtel de Ville, you will be riding on that first metro that came to the city of Paris. And we're just going to stop in a little bit further along here. And then if you see the Eiffel Tower in the distance there, just through the haze. Now the bridge which we're coming up to here, we're just going to stop on the other side so you can see it better with the sun from the other side. The bridge that we're coming up to here is the Pont de la Concorde. See it much better from the other side. Lovely place to sit down. Okie dokie, so let's just take a little brief stop here. So this rather magnificent looking bridge here, this is the Pont de la Concorde. The Pont de la Concorde is a bridge which is relatively recent for the city. It's probably most famous for containing a few stones from the Bastille. the Bastille, as some of you call it. So during the French Revolution, really one of the main events which precipitated that revolution, which historians consider started everything, there was the storming of the Bastille to release the prisoners. There were very few prisoners actually in reality, but they stormed the Bastille. The people ripped the building apart, and they built this bridge here to kind of reunite everything again. So there's the Pont de la Concorde, and I will just point out as we have actually one of you are wonder there's how far is this place from the Louvre? So we have a square which is just to our side here, just hidden. There is, you can see just in the very center there is the obelisk just over in the square there. So this is the Place de la Concorde. Place de la Concorde is really just separated in the city from the Louvre by the Tuileries. So we have the Tuileries Gardens just next to this square here. It is a 10-minute walk to get through the Tuileries Gardens and find your way to the Louvre there. So heart of the city here. The building which is on the right-hand side there, very, very proudly flying the French flag. This is the Palais Bourbon. Okay, the Palais Bourbon. It's more known to us, and it's actually written just on the pedestal there. It's actually written Assemblée Nationale. So this is our Parliament buildings that you have right in line with the Pont de la Concorde there. So the Parliament buildings there, and if I just look slightly to the side, there's two other French flags on the right-hand side here. This is the Foreign Ministry. So if any of you ever have heads of state who come to visit Paris, you'll often see handshakes between Macron, Manu as we call him, and very important officials in front of these two buildings here. But to come back to this space here, it's not the most glamorous of scenes. Let's just pan away from the Place de la Concorde here is at the base of the Champs-Élysées. If any of you saw the July 14th celebrations, Bastille Day, the President of the Republic had his pride of place seat just at the center of everything there. Do have a look at what was going on there. It was a fantastic time, but we're going to continue for now just along the river. Eiffel Tower in view. Don't hesitate to pose any questions in the chat. So today, as you may be able to hear the clicking of my bike, I am on my bike, but I'm going quite slowly. We're going to cover a little over 2 miles of the city on a little wander through today. You could do this quite easily. An hour or so would be more than enough time. There we go. And you may see in the distance, just the left-hand side of the Louvre there are some fairly impressive statues silhouetted. So we're going to go just by them now. So this is a tricky one. Does anyone in the chat know which bridge this is I'm coming up to here? Again, a fantastic way to get through the city. Just do come down to the berges, as we call them, the riverbanks of the Seine. So this bridge here, I do hope some of you have visited this space. It's absolutely a wonderful bridge. I'm just going to pass through the other side to get some nice lighting on it. If any of you managed to watch Ferret and Josephine's tour from a couple of weeks ago, I'm pretty sure you finished here actually. Okay. You'll notice we have a wonderful, Paris is full of brides at the moment. Magnificent, huh? I'm sure we'll see a few more of those. I did just see in the chat there, yes, of course, this is Pont Alexander III, Pont Alexander III's bridge. Let's just take a chance to look at this. So, wonderful, wonderful bridge. This is perhaps, for me, the most elegant of all bridges in Paris. We have the Fames on the top of the, there you go. So Pont Alexander III Bridge. In fact, this is of course history from the Great Expositions again. And it's in fact the same exposition as we were talking about back with the Orsay Museum. Paris had a total about 6 expositions depending on how you class them. So this is the 1900 World Fair. 52 million people would come to the World Fair for 1900. Paris at the time had a population of 40 million in the larger area around Ile-de-France. So vast numbers, very similar to the kind of numbers that we have nowadays. The bridge itself, a little bit like the Orsay Museum, it's really a showcase for technology as much as anything. Behind its elegance, you may have noticed as we passed under it, we have this very intricate ironwork frame just underneath it. It's the first bridge that manages to jump over the river in just one go without having any pontoons in the middle as such. So this bridge here, it's a gift from Russia. Don't want to tread too much on the toes of Ferret and Josephine. I'm just going to go a little bit further away to give you a better view. Let's have a look here. So as I say, this is a gift from Russia. Nicholas, the son of Alexander III, would be the one to inaugurate this bridge here. There we go, that's a little bit better. Wonderful. So, Nicholas would inaugurate this bridge for Alexander III. And in fact, yes, Russia and France, in a way, they're twinned not only in gifting bridges to each other. I'll come back to another bridge in St. Petersburg in a minute, but also because these world fairs are a chance of showing your industrial prowess, and Russia and France, really behind the United Kingdom, were not quite as advanced as the rest of the world. So they worked in concert here to show off their wares. Now, as far as the decoration here, the gold fames that you see on the top of these columns, they're not purely decorative. A little bit like a suspension bridge would have big counterweights. Those are actually counterweights there. These are simply to decorate those counterweights. And the other bridge, which I did just allude to a moment ago, we do have a structure here in this city, some of you may know, built by a certain Gustave Eiffel. We're going to finish up by there a little bit later on. Gustave, a little before, obviously builds the Eiffel Tower, he builds a bridge himself, very, very similar construction to the Eiffel Tower. He builds a bridge which was built in pieces and then brought up the river, placed in the heart of St. Petersburg, almost identical, very, very similar look to that bridge there. And then this bridge here was kind of in receipt of that. Very similar dimensions, very, very similar structure. If you see the kind of style of this bridge, it's what we call neo-baroque, okay? Those, as one of you quite correctly said, those beautifully restored fames. This bridge underwent a restoration only a few years ago. This is very, very much a Russian style, far too opulent, far too decorated. I'll try and zoom in. At the very heart here we have, don't know if you can quite see that, maybe have a look online, but we have the nymphs of the Seine right in the very, very center here. There's 2 pairs, 2 girls and 2 guys. The guys, the male cherubs, or nymphs as we call them, they represent Russia. The ladies on the other side, they represent France. But a wonderful, wonderful bridge here. What I like about this bridge, I have to say, is it's been in the movies. You see it a lot in kind of modern culture of the city. Any James Bond fans? We saw James Bond once jump from the Eiffel Tower just to our right, drive in half a taxi up to this bridge and jump in the water at one point. Not quite sure of which James Bond film that was. Escapes me for the moment. Any of you that followed my literary tour of the 5th and 6th, A Midnight in Paris, a great film to just really romanticize about the city with. We have our main character, Owen Wilson. He's walking back and forth across this bridge in the rain, of course. Maybe we have some Emily in Paris fans. Any Emily in Paris fans? Or Adele fans? Someone like you. I won't break into song for you, but you've seen this bridge is what I'm trying to say. You've seen this all over modern media. So it's quite a sight, that. Now, have to pardon me huffing and puffing. I think I'm just going to take you up these stairs here. We're going to see another couple of structures just up here. Chance to see those beautiful fames. At the same time as they worked on restoring the fames here, we also had the our bride is back. There you go. What a wonderful city to get married in. There we go. Anyway, let's go up here. Excusez-moi. Okay. So we are up. I'm just going to cross over here. Excuse me for being quiet, so I risk my life for you all. Here we go, so crossing over. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so the building on our left-hand side here, wouldn't like to dwell too much here. This is the Grand Palais hiding herself for us. This is really the heart of that 1900 World Fair. The Grand Palais, you can see her hidden behind scaffolding. She has had very rough 20th century, actually, it has to be said. 1900 she was initially built, enjoyed a kind of short heyday between up to the time of the First World War. Second World War as well rolls through, and in fact the palais, the Grand Palais that we have here, Paris is more or less untouched during the Second World War. Famously, Hitler came to take over the city without firing a shot. And actually the liberation of Paris as well was a fairly peaceful affair, apart from here we had as part of the structure, we had a group of gendarmes. We had a prefecture of the city, a space where the police were using, and the police were really behind the resistance in Paris. So of course, when the police were the first to really hold out against the Germans in the last few days of German occupation, this was one of the only places in the city to really suffer. And I'm afraid to say the Grand Palais was actually burnt to a shell. So it had extensive works rebuilding it just following the Second World War. Back in 2004, a rivet also very famously fell from all of the ironwork in the centre. So it's been closed in the early 2000s, and now again, I'm afraid to say, we can't quite see the exterior of it. If any of that Second World War history is interesting to you, by the way, I will shortly be doing another tour about the liberation of Paris. So we'll be visiting some other sites in the city if that piques your curiosity. There we have that. And on the same note, there's a gentleman just over my shoulder here. Don't know if you would recognise that very stern look to him. So we're actually on the avenue, which used to be known as the Avenue Winston Churchill. Some of you may not know, but actually following that Second World War, during the Second World War, there were thoughts for a very brief time to actually fusion, to join together France and the UK into one great nation. Don't want to get political with you today. I'm not sure that would have worked particularly well, but that was one of the brainchilds of Churchill. But Churchill was very, very well regarded here by the French, so he's honoured with this statue that we have here. I'll just move on, just to show that we have here. So the Grand Palais, behind its scaffolding, is not the only thing that we do have here. We have one big palace, the Grand Palais, and then we have the Petit Palais as well. So this on my right here is the Petit Palais, equally built for that World Fair of 1900. I'll just place you in front. So, the Petit Palais has had a much easier time of things here. The Petit Palais here, built up in the, so say 1900, however, has been intact ever since then. And it is definitely a place that you would like to see. Neo-Baroque is styling on much of this. So definitely worth a look inside. There's also, you don't have to walk straight up these steps. As Farah quite correctly said last week, if you would like to walk down those steps, newly married, you can hire this place for an event. A little bit pricey. Look at this wonderful gates there. So really a magnificent space all around. Shame we can't see a little bit more of the Grand Palais there, but not too worrying. Okay, so let's go back to the river. Continue our journey down along. This space that we are actually in, this city, is quite important. This axis. France really enjoys its axes. So if I show you just in the distance there, you'll see the police coming out to put on a show for you. Just in the far distance at the end there, you'll see the gold dome of Les Invalides. The Invalides there is a... Apologise for the noise. Les Invalides there is a military hospital. We also have the Cathedral Saint-Louis in the very centre of it. But this line here, we call this the Republican axis, because going from the Invalides through the Pont Alexandre III, through these two palaces, just behind the trees there, we also have the Élysée Palace of the President, just hidden there behind the trees. If you try and have a look at this on Google Earth, you'll see it's all a big blur. But yeah, very important, very significant axis of the city. And actually on that theme of axes in the city, I've spoken a lot about the 1900 World Fair. Some of the earlier World Fairs, notably 1855 and 1867, at the time we have a new empire in power there. Okay? The emperor is an emperor by the name of Napoleon. Of course, this is not Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon III is our Napoleon III is our emperor at that time. And actually, one of the main justifications for the World Fairs of that time was really to show off this magnificent city. See these boulevards, you see those wonderful straight lines down here. In fact, 1855, there's big exposition spaces that have now since disappeared. That's why we have this rare open space in the city. But yeah, the city really wanted to show off, the emperor really wanted to show off these magnificent open spaces, and this is why we have these big open avenues. Let's take the crossing. And in fact, where we're rolling along now, we had a very peculiar little installation. In fact, the section of the river which I'm rolling around now, for about 3 miles or so, 2-3 miles or so, we've had the metro arriving a little bit later. The solution in the middle of the 19th century was to build a rolling carpet, a tapis roulant as they call it. So going over towards the Invalides, a statue up there, going on the south side of the river, but also following around the space that we're in now, we have this tapis roulant, which you would simply jump aboard, a little bit like a moving escalator, just to move our big crowds of people around. As I said, tens and tens of millions of people would come to the city. So we have to think about them getting from A to B. Just trying to rush for the lights here. Okay. Cross again. Just cross this. Now we're going to go to a part of the Seine which has a little bit of American history. Just in the distance there, we have 2 spires. Okay, Eiffel Tower you'll recognise well. If we zoom in on this spire here, just for reference, this is just on the left bank, not far away from the Pont Alma Mater. Pont d'Alma. This spire over here is the American Church of Paris. It's been here for a long time, actually. The American Church of Paris has been there originally starting in the beginning of the 19th century. So any Americans who come through the city is definitely worth a pilgrimage to as such. So I have a little bit of American heritage there, but what I'm really following along here for is on the next bridge. Look at this. One of the busiest cities in the world, and I have the whole space to myself. On a Saturday afternoon, nonetheless. Point out to you as well. Now, we are in no way connected. This is not a sponsorship agreement. Just on our left-hand side over there, you will see many boat companies in this city. If you come to Paris as well, you can maybe repeat this tour as such by taking the Bateau Mouche. Okay, Bateau Mouche is one of many, many companies that there we have the American church behind. The Bateau Mouche is one of the many companies that takes visitors up and down the river here. The Bateau Mouche, it's a little bit like Hoover. It's actually a kind of general name which used to be given to the boats which plied the river. And you'll never guess it, but of course the Bateau Mouche actually arrived here first for the World Fairs. Okay. The entire district, which is on our left-hand side there, just behind the gleaming silver skeleton of the Tyrannus Rex. So this entire neighbourhood, which we have really between the Eiffel Tower and going back towards the Musee there, used to be known as the Les Mouches. So hence the boats which would ply the rivers, calling on the left side, that far side of the river here. That's where the name Bateau Mouche comes from. Okay, now the American church. But if you take a boat in the river, you of course can use any company. I will suggest there are certain companies which allow you to, I'm just going to pass by the cars. There are certain companies which would do a circuit and drop you back at the start. If you would like to profit fully from all the sights that you see along Paris, you can get off if you take a Bateau Mouche, as they stop at many, many spots all the way along. So just I feel like I'm taking my life in my hands for you all. So here we are coming up towards the Pont d'Alma. Doesn't quite look upright, this rickshaw here. Let's hope we fare better. So this is the Pont d'Alma coming up. I'm just going to have a look. I have to say before I reveal it to you, for me this has to be the most ugly bridge of all bridges in Paris. What do you think there? Not sure about that. I do want to show you though this gentleman. So just in the centre, oh, how are we going now? There we go. So this is Zoave. I haven't seen any comments for a little while. I'd just like to make sure that this is running well for you. I believe we're all still there. So this is Zoave, okay, on the Pont Alma-Marceau, Pont d'Iéna, sorry. Zoave is actually one of 4 characters, okay? The old bridge that used to be here before this one was brought in the end of the 20th century, the old bridge had 2 of these pontoons. Either side we had statues, so 4 characters in total. We had a grenadier, we had an infantryman, a cavalryman I believe it was, and then we had this Zoave here. Zoave is from the Crimean Wars. The Zoave were a group of soldiers, came from French territories in the north of Africa. None of that is greatly important. He's known to the French people now. Thank you, Maria, there. He's known to the French people now. Whenever we have floods in the city, he is our yardstick as such. So we had a series of floods in the beginning of the 20th century. 1910 was one of the most well-known floods, where he was entirely lost below the waves. And then a few years ago, the river got up to his elbows there. I'm glad that you appreciate the Eiffel Tower there in the background. Yes, it does. It is a bit of a saving grace for us. So if you do pass through Paris, do have a look at Zohar. Do have a look at where the river is on him. But he's known to absolutely everyone here, kind of cherished figure. The real reason though that I've taken you to this spot is to show you more gold. I do like my gold in this city, I have to say. I'm going to let these cars pass. I'll give you a nice view of the Eiffel Tower there. The lamppost decorating the top of it. What could have been. Just give the chance for one to pass. I have to say there's a wonderful atmosphere in the city. All the restrictions of COVID and the rest seem like a distant memory almost to Paris. But this is one of the first weekends only when we've been able to really profit from the city. Now, the real reason that I've decided to take you here is this. Okay, now, how many of you are expecting to see a beautiful golden flame just sitting actually at the top of an underground section of the... So this flame that we have here, maybe I'll cross the road and just get a little bit closer for you. Just line you up a little bit nicely. Better. There we go. Okay, so this flame that we see here, a little bit of an oddity here. Do any of you recognize this flame? Have you seen anything similar elsewhere in the world, perhaps? Give you a chance, a moment or two to a certain lady holding this flame proud, New York Harbor. I'm sure it's on the tip of your tongues and your fingertips as you fiercely type. This is the flame of the Statue of Liberty. Okay. Now, what is the flame of the Statue of Liberty doing here? For the 1889 World Fair, Paris, there we go, you're all right there, fantastic. Yeah, for the 1889 World Fair, Paris would gain its own Statue of Liberty. In fact, even before that, for another World Fair in the 1870s, you could walk around the head of the Statue of Liberty. As part of the exposition, you could see that frame. So, of course, the Statue of Liberty, it is built by a team of French sculptors, engineers. Of course, our engineer here was the Eiffel Engineering Company. So Eiffel built the frame, sent it out to New York. And yes, of course, as I'm seeing in the comments there, this has a particular meaning to me as a British citizen. I'm afraid to say that in the underpass, which you can see just on the right-hand side here, after visiting one of the very, very fine hotels which you have on the right-hand side, Lady Diana would pass into this underpass not to return on the other side. The flame, in fact, arrived here only a few months before Diana would make that last journey. So for many people the world over, this has really become a point of memorial to Diana. Maybe I'll bring you a little bit closer to see that, actually. So as you come here, even today, we have many flowers and the like placed here. So all of these years later, now on 20 years later, there we have, I'll show you just around here. The connection between the two, of course, as I was saying there, is simply coincidental. The two events, this arriving and her passing, just coincidentally at the same moment there. But yeah, quite a point of pilgrimage in the city. You can see even today. We have very, very few foreign tourists in the city at the moment. Most of these will probably be French local tourists, but very visitors. Okay, so we'll continue on just a little. Do forgive me if I'm silent for a second as I pass. Okay. Okay, so we are winding our way towards the Eiffel Tower. Take another big jump in the city. Not sure how much you can see there with the sun in front, but we'll be in the shadows in just a moment before we hit our next location. That really feels like the city is coming back to life here, I have to say. And just on our right hand side, okay, there we go. So this building that we have here, I don't know if any of you have ever taken the time to look inside. So this building here is coming from another World Fair in the city. This is called the Palais de Tokyo. And the Palais de Tokyo, the fairly busy road, excuse me, the very busy road that we have here, this area is known as the Quai de Tokyo, so the Palais de Tokyo takes a name from that. The Palais de Tokyo was built for the World Fair of 1937, so a fair bit later than the World Fairs which I've spoken about up until now. And it's a shame really, because in a way the 1937 World Fair was the end of this great era of World Fairs. Okay? 1937, well, only a couple of years beyond that we would have the Second World War rolling through, ravaging Europe, and beyond that time we have had World Fairs. There's one in Korea a few years ago, but they have been nothing like the grand spectacles that we saw back in the day. So we had this Palais de Tokyo built for that 1937 World Fair, and today it is many, many, many things. The skaters are always here, as long as it's not wet. Left and right, which in fact have two museums. So we have the Paris Museum of Modern Art on the right-hand side, and to translate as such on the left-hand side is the site of the creation of contemporary arts. It's a little bit different. We have more temporary expositions. There we go, Palais de Tokyo. We have more temporary expositions on this left-hand side. When we have twice a year for our winter and summer collections, when we have the Paris fashion show rolling through town, there's always some of the most impressive catwalks here on the left-hand side. There's a cafe here which I would suggest any of you to visit. Nice views through the trees to the Eiffel Tower. And then there is also just underground here, we do have there's a nightclub here. It's been closed for the last year and a bit. That has just, I believe, reopened. It's called Yo-Yo, full of politicians and footballers, the worst of the worst. Hope that none of you are politicians or footballers. But anyway, so we have a lot going on here. It's a lovely place to just sit out, take a coffee. But 1937, another great sadness in a way for this building is that this building and its wonderful Art Deco styling, very different to a lot of the other architecture which you had for the World Fairs, because Europe was starting to become a little heated. In fact, this as one of many exhibition spaces in the city, it simply wasn't needed. It was never full as it was always anticipated to be, but at least it makes a wonderful space for arts now. So there is the Palais de Tokyo for you, 1937. Okay, I think we're going to continue just a little bit further. You'll find our Iron Lady. Maybe see her through the trees. Let's see if I can get through. Attention, excusez-moi, excusez-moi. Opa. Okay, so. Photo shoots always going on this time of year. Okay. Okay, there we have magnificent Eiffel Tower. In fact, let's just pause here for a second to let you all enjoy that. There we go. Let's see, I'm just reading the comments. So freedom demonstrations right now against mandatory injections. Saturday, wonderful weather. There will always be a demonstration for something on such a wonderful day. The Eiffel Tower itself, you probably know a little bit about its history, but aside from the Musée d'Orsay, the Museum of the Orsay, this really has to be the symbol of Paris, but also the symbol of the World Fairs. So 1889, as I've mentioned, was the particular World Fair that this would be built for. In fact, the Eiffel Tower was never really a sure thing until the very, very end. In the run-up to that World Fair, as the Republic re-establishes after the World Fairs of the Empire, we're going to do things differently. We're going to do things with a little bit more equality, and we're going to have a competition to build something here, to find an inspiration for something to build here. So in the first entry to competitions here, first competition for entries as such, we had over 100 entrants. All had propositions to build something on this site. In fact, the conditions of that first competition were very, very open. The first kind of briefing for that competition, the city actually they defined the site. The site would be open for 20 years. They wanted perhaps some archways here, or perhaps a tower. It was very, very open. It was very kind of, it was up to the interpretations of people to redesign whatever they thought would bring the people to the city. As part of those 100 applications, of course, Eiffel was in that group. It was actually not mainly his design. We have two of his engineers, Musee and Koechlin, who are really behind the design here. Musee and Koechlin, they'd only been working for the company for several months at a time in the case of one of them. And it was really in their spare time that they had designed this structure here, this structure that was taller than anything that had ever been built at the time before. They show this to Eiffel. Eiffel decides this is the structure that will win him the competition, so he licenses these designs. Musee and Koechlin, they were involved to an extent. They did very well out of this, but Eiffel is the man who pulled this competition forward. There were a few fairly dubious changes in the rules for that competition, which actually excluded by rule changes a lot of his competitors until eventually he would win this competition. 1887 he will win this competition, okay? That's only 2 years before this thing would need to be ready to welcome the crowds of people that came to see the city. But of course, this would be built, the tallest tower in the world, in that 2-year time frame. Eiffel is quite a character. I'd love to sit here for a while and tell you more about Eiffel, but yeah, he got this built in those 2 years. He made his money back in only a few months. This was only supposed to stay for 20 years. But this was a feature of the 1900 World Fair just a few years later. This was very important in the First World War as a radio tower, the front lines only being a few miles over my shoulder, a few tens of miles, so I had to stay for that. Eiffel, you may not know, but Eiffel in fact built himself a private apartment at the very top of the tower here as well, from which a lot of scientific experiments were being done. All of these reasons meant that the Eiffel Tower, of course, by that time having become a symbol of the city, must remain, and to this day we still have her. And to this day, in fact to yesterday, she was closed for a while. There's a lot of work which goes into maintaining her. For the last 8 months she was closed, but yesterday the Iron Lady has reopened for us all to see. So if you are in Paris, do visit the Eiffel Tower, do go up there. It's quite a sight. I feel like we've told you a little bit about the Eiffel Tower before, so we're going to move on, we're going to carry on, and I think we're just going to finish off in the gardens, which are here on the right hand side, nestled in one of the palaces, another palace of the city. So let's see how we're going to get through here today. You will notice this is probably one of the busiest parts of the city today. Everyone out to enjoy. See through there the Eiffel Tower, through the trees. I did pass through here a couple of hours ago. We do actually have a concert here on the right hand side. So typically on the right hand side here we have some fountains actually. I think we're going to climb up still nonetheless. Okay, let's cross up through here, show you some of the life of Paris. Okay, so I do hope you are able to hear me here. Oh, it looks all close. Oh, look. Let's see how we go. So, we're just climbing up to the top here, and as I see some comments here from our team, I'm still going to go for a few minutes, don't worry, but I'm huffing and puffing my way up through this hill just to give you the best view in the city at the moment. I will take the opportunity to say, if you are enjoying this, if you have enjoyed this as much as I have, these tours are free and open for all of you to enjoy. Personally, I'm just very, very happy to see all 53 of you at the moment taking your Saturday afternoon. Thank you very much, Teresa. I am more than grateful for that. But yes, as you can tell, if you are able to donate anything to us, we really greatly appreciate it. If this bites into your latte fund every morning, really don't worry about it. Do tune in, do share with your friends any links to our tours if you find them interesting. Spread the word. But if you are able to give, the links in the chat. And I won't say any more about that, don't worry. It's quite a run up here. Paris is busy again. Don't worry, I'll find you some peace in just a second at the top of this hill. So, you may notice that we're actually walking up kind of into the embrace. There are buildings surrounding us on the left and the right hand side, two buildings which mirror each other. As I said, this is another palace. So this is known as the Palais de Chaillot. And the Palais de Chaillot, a little bit like the Palais de Trocadero, Palais de Tokyo, comes here for the 1937 World Fair. And this is really the hub of that 1937 World Fair. Okay, let's just pause here for a second. Give you the Eiffel Tower in the distance there. Whew. So, two buildings. You can see our statues, the flag on the top there. So, 1937, we have this horseshoe-shaped building built here. You can see it's running all the way around us here. And this was the center of those activities, although it is only the modern palace. Okay, I mentioned him very, very briefly, but Napoleon, just after the French Revolution actually, started the project for another building to be built here. So the hill itself is known as Trocadero, and the Trocadero was a palace which was built here for previous world fairs. 1855 was the first World Fair that the Trocadero was really the heart of. And that palace was not vastly different, it has to be said. Let's just move you through. The Trocadero Palace was very decorated. Don't worry, I'll spin you around in a second to see. Okay, we're back. So there we have the Eiffel Tower in the distance. So, our modern Trocadero, Palais de Chaillot. the first, I have a lovely exposition for you to see. The first palace here, as I say, the Trocadero Palace, was very decorated. It was covered in statues and the rest. It was nothing of the simplicity that we have here of this Art Deco structure. And the Parisians hated it. With a big body, the concert hall that sat in the centre, they called it the Spider. The first time that they went up the Eiffel Tower, it's still here in the 1889 World Fair for the Eiffel Tower. They called it the Spider. They had it knocked down for that 1937 World Fair. I'm just going to spin you around. So do come through the space here. In fact, the building over my shoulder here, the Palais de Chaillot, is broken again, a little bit like the Palais de Tokyo. We have an architectural museum just over here, the Cité de l'Architecture. We also have a museum here of ethnography, a museum of man as such, which is just on the other side here. So interesting spaces to visit. We also have in the trees where we were walking up through just a moment ago, some of you, I don't know if you may remember, many years ago I actually trained as an oceanographer. We have a big marine centre just under the trees, which dates back all the way to the time of the World Fairs. I'm very proud to say it's one of the first big marine parks worldwide, actually, all this way from the sea. So an amazing, amazing space. There we have just around very, very busy city. I will thank you very much for joining us today. Almost 60 of you now, fantastic. So any comments, any questions, please put them in the chat. I'll stay on for a little bit here just to say goodbye to you. Thank you very much, Judy. We appreciate it greatly. Really makes a difference. Yeah, it's been an interesting walk through the city. I'd love to know what's going on behind here. I hope you can hear me well enough. It's very, very noisy, very, very busy. Trying to see if we've got any more brides. We've usually got a few brides around here. I think we've seen our quota of brides today. Anyway, thank you everyone. Thank you. Fantastic. Okay, so I'll stay on here just for a second or two more, just to in case you do have any questions for me. Beautiful day in the city. I hope you do all have the chance to come and enjoy Paris. Starting to come back to life. Loud bird chirping. Yes, I'm afraid it's a little puppy dancing behind me. It's a fairground here, really. Cheers, Ricky. Thank you. Thank you, Teresa. Have a good day yourself. Okay, I'm going to sign off. Wonderful showing Paris with you. Catch you in a couple of weeks. We have other tours going on every 2 weeks. So do sign up, do go onto our Facebook group, see what's going on there. On our YouTube as well, we do have generally the next couple of events. You'll be able to sign into our YouTube, have a look on our group page. You'll see what's coming up. Maybe in a month or so we'll have another tour with me, look at Paris back in the Second World War. We'll see what's going on. So yeah, bye everyone, thank you, au revoir, ciao.